Thank you and welcome back to my channel. This is Tolu Cooks. Today we're going to be making a fabulous dish from the northern part of Nigeria, and this is also a dish enjoyed by so many African countries. I'm going to be showing you the ingredients to the famous groundnut soup, but today because I'm using peanut butter, so I'm going to be calling it peanut butter soup. Let me introduce you to my ingredients. So today I'm going to be using all natural creamy peanut butter. Make sure when you get your peanut butter, you want to make sure that you check the ingredients at the back to make sure there's no sugar. If you get a peanut butter that includes the sugar in it, your soup is going to be sweet, and you really do not want a sweet kind of soup. We're going to be using some smoked shrimps, and the seasoning we're going to be using today, of course, we're going to be using some salt, some poultry season, some nutmeg, some white pepper. We're going to be putting in some sage. We're going to use some rosemary. We're going to use some cumin. We're going to use some clove. We're going to put in some curry, and of course Maggi Chicken bouillon. And I like to put a little bit of freshness into my dish, so I'm going to be using some basil and some thyme. These are fresh from my garden. Also, I'm also going to be using some onions, some fresh tomatoes, some scotch pepper, habanero pepper, some ginger, some jalapeno peppers. And to garnish my dish, or to give it more local flavor, I'm going to be putting in some stockfish, and also I'm going to be putting in smoked mackerel fish. I actually smoked this fish myself outside, and I'll be using at end. Guys, let the fun begins. Okay guys, we're gonna start the cooking process by actually boiling up our chicken. Right now my chicken is cleaned and is ready to go into the pot for me to boil it. I'm gonna season it and I'm gonna let that cook. Then I'm gonna come to my peanut butter and my vegetables, and I'm gonna start making those. So we're gonna do multiple things at the same time to kind of like quicken up the cooking process so that we're not in the kitchen forever. So now I'm gonna put my chicken in the pot and I'm gonna season it. To season my chicken, I need to season this chicken real good, because that is where most of the seasoning is gonna go for my peanut butter soup. So today I'm gonna be using 2 spoons of poultry seasoning. I'm gonna be using 3 tablespoons of Maggi, I'm gonna be using 1/4 spoon of clove. I do not want to put too much clove in it. I'm going to be using 1 tablespoon of cumin. I'm going to be using 1/2 tablespoon of sage. I'm going to be using 1/2 tablespoon of rosemary. I'm going to be using 1/2 tablespoon of curry. And I'm not going to put in my white pepper right now. I like to mix in my white pepper with the peanut butter. It doesn't really matter, you can put it in your chicken, but I like to do mine that way. And I have nutmeg, which I'm going to be using 1/4 of nutmeg. And this is roughly equivalent of 1 cup of cut up onions. And I'm going to be putting it. At this point, I like to add in my water. 3 cups of water. I stir well. In my pot, I have all my peppers, my vegetables all cut up. I'm gonna steam this for about 10 minutes, then I'm gonna blend it. So while this is steaming, I'm gonna go ahead and mix my peanut butter. So I'm gonna put this on the stove and let it steam for 10 minutes. I have my all natural peanut butter. go to your local store and see. And if you like the option of buying your fresh peanut and roast it, then blend it up yourself, you can also do that. But this is an easier route to go, especially in this part of the world. And I'm gonna mix in my warm water into it. I already have warm water, about 6 cups of warm water in my kettle that I've been warming because I do not like to use cold water. It doesn't break out easily, and I just add in the water gradually. I do not want my peanut butter texture to be thick. I want it to be creamy, but I will show you my end result. Now if you look here, I've mixed in my 6 cups of water with my 2 cups of peanut butter, my whole natural peanut butter. If you look at it, it's running because I need it to be very thin out, so that way when I cook it, it has enough time for it to cook, for all the oils to come out and for it to be well done. If you do not cook your peanut butter soup very well, man, you're gonna be visiting the bathroom, probably you'll have to go in there with your peanut. So coming over to the stove, okay, now my chicken has been steaming for about 15 minutes. The reason why I didn't put my salt initially was because I'm using a whole lot of flavors, a whole lot of seasoning, and that way I do not want to put too much at the beginning and I overload it. So my chicken do need salt. I'm gonna put in 1.5 spoons of salt, and at this time I'm gonna add in a little bit more Maggi, the bouillon. So I'm gonna put in another 1.5 spoons of that. Man, you need to smell this. Whew. It's gonna be good tonight. So I'm gonna stir that in. I'm gonna cover it. It's the add in, so I'm gonna let it cook for another 15 minutes. Normally, if I do it that way, it makes it very soft, and it's still gonna cook in the peanut butter sauce, so it's still gonna cook down more. Now I'm gonna go over to my vegetable. I've been steaming this vegetable for about 10 minutes. If you look in here, it's still very bright color, but it has cooked down. I'm gonna put in my blender and I'm gonna blend it up. I decided to use my hand blender to actually blend the sauce because I'm only trying to get the flavors out of my vegetables, and I'm gonna sieve it into my peanut butter. That way I can put this on the stove for it to start cooking while my chicken is still cooking. My chicken has been cooking right now for about 20 minutes plus. I'm gonna let it cook for an additional 10 more minutes and check it, and hopefully by then it would have cooked down. So I'm gonna try and see this. I'm trying to make my peanut butter soup as smooth as I can get it. So I'm gonna use 1 cup of water to actually try and stir my vegetables into the sauce, and we're gonna get this party rolling. At this point, I just finished sieving my tomato, the vegetable that I boiled for about 10 minutes. So I sieved it into my peanut butter puree, and if you can see, it's not thick at all. And this is the shaft that was left from the vegetable that I boiled up and I blended in the pot and I sieved. So now this is all sieved in this pot with the peanut butter and the vegetable. Actually, when I was sieving that, I used 1 extra cup of water to sieve it. So I'm gonna take this to the stove so it can start cooking because the chicken is still boiling. And the chicken has been boiling for a while now. So now the peanut butter sauce is already boiling on the stove. If you're looking here, our chicken is actually cooked. I had to leave it on the stove for it to cook a little bit longer. It's already cooked for 30 minutes now, but I'm gonna leave it for it to cook for like 10-15 minutes because I want this broth, I want it to thicken up before I pour in my peanut butter sauce. But because I just don't want to sit around waiting on this to cook, I put my peanut butter sauce on the stove on the other side so it can start cooking. That way we can use one stone to kill two birds. And we're gonna cover this. We're gonna let it steam more for about 15 minutes while this is cooking, because we're gonna let the peanut butter sauce cook real good until all the oil is coming to the top. So I'm gonna add that into this chicken and add in some other ingredients. But before I actually close the pot, at this time I like to add in my stockfish, because I need the stockfish to cook a little bit longer. It's tough, it's chewy, so if I put it in now, it's gonna cook with the chicken and it's gonna become more tender. The chicken has been cooking for additional 15 minutes. So, if we look in here to the bottom, you will see that my sauce has really thickened. That is the broth that was in the chicken. So this chicken is full of flavor. Right now, I have my peanut butter cooking on the other side of the stove. FYI, do not cook your peanut butter on high heat, and do not cover it all the way, because if you do, it's gonna foam over and create a whole big mess. Talking from experience. So at this point, I'm gonna take that peanut butter sauce, I'm gonna add it into this chicken. It's been cooking for a while, so it started thickening up on the bottom, and I'm gonna spread that into my soup. Gonna look at that. So make sure it's not too thick. If your sauce is too thick at this time, you can add more water to it, but make sure you're tasting, because you don't want to lose the flavor in your meal. So at this point now, I can cover. I'm gonna cook on medium heat. Peanut butter soup has been cooking for about 20 minutes now. So let's look at what it looks like now. Okay, if you can see, the oil is already setting to the top. Let's be careful, and we're cooking on medium. High. It's between medium and high. So right now the oil is beginning to set. It's looking good. It's almost there, but it's not there yet. Another 15-20 minutes, the soup should be ready. Honestly speaking, peanut butter soup is not a soup you really want to rush to cook. You have to take your time. You have to put it on the stove, let it cook while you go do something else. And if you wonder why I cook in large quantity like this, it's because of my upbringing. When we were growing up, I grew up in a very big family, and my mom loved to have people over. My cousins, my nieces, nephews, name it. My aunties, uncles, they all lived with us. So the smallest amount of people that we cook for every night is about 10 to 12 every single night. So I'm used to cooking in big quantity, and honestly it comes in as a plus for me, because when I cook in big quantity like this, I can put it in 3 different bowls, and I can have some in the freezer which I can take. It's not every time I have the opportunity to sit down and stay in the kitchen for a couple of hours cooking peanut butter soup. But once it is cooked, I can freeze some, and even sometimes I don't even need to freeze it. I have some wonderful sisters and friends around that will always pop in to get a plate. My kitchen is somewhere people love to stop by and come have a bite, and I always want them to have something to eat. So a big pot works for me. If you want to cook in smaller quantity, you can divide my recipe up and make it suit you. So now, I'm gonna add in the dry fish that I smoked myself. And I'm also gonna add in the smoked shrimp. I'm gonna mix that in. this point, I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of white pepper, sorry, that's actually a teaspoon of white pepper, and I'm gonna put in my Maggi. So this is half teaspoon I'm using. So that's about 1.5 teaspoons. And half teaspoon of salt. We're gonna mix them well. We're gonna cover it and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Then I'm gonna come back and put in my last ingredient. And our peanut butter soup should be ready. And I'm very curious to know what you like to eat your peanut butter soup with. In my own situation, I'm gonna be having it tonight with some gari, but I actually made the gari, I cooked it so that it's a little bit more smooth. So we're gonna cover this up so it can steam for 10 more minutes. Come on. This has been steaming for about 10 minutes. So now I'm gonna add in my last ingredients, my chopped up onions, my jalapeno pepper for garnishing, and some fresh thymes. We're gonna mix this in well, and we're gonna let it steam for about 5 minutes. And guess what? Our soup is ready. Okay, now it's been steaming for about 5 minutes. Let's see what. Ooh, look at that beauty. That is so good looking. This soup is, wow. If you can see that, the chicken is so tender. My peanut butter sauce is still liquidy, or how can I say it? It's not so thick. And you need to smell that aroma. This is gonna be so delicious, the flavor. But one major thing about this soup is don't be afraid to try out your flavors, your ingredients that you have. I intentionally used a lot of seasoning, different kinds, to kind of let you know it's okay to season your food real good. And honestly speaking, this particular pot of peanut butter soup is the best one I've made so far. I love it. I tasted it. It's so yummy. Let me actually show you how it's gonna look. Voila! So this is the end result of my peanut butter soup. It has the chicken, the smoked shrimp, the smoked fish, and some stockfish. It has a lot of flavor in it. It's all packed into this one dish. We can use this. This is gonna go with some gari for me tonight. You can use this with different other things. You can put it over your yam, over your green plantain, with your Ghanaian. There are so many possibilities to this soup. Try it out. This particular one is loaded with a lot of flavor. It tastes so delicious. I cannot wait to eat it. Leave me comments about what you like to eat this with, and at the same time, if there is a particular recipe you would love me to try out for you, or you want to see how I cook mine, you can send me a message, leave me a comment, and let me know what it is, and I'll put a Tolu Cooks twist on it, and I'll spin the dish and make it beautiful and delicious. Thank you for tuning in today. Please remember to like my channel, share, and subscribe. I will see you again on another episode of Tolu Cook. Remember, hold on to your faith. Family is very important, and love your friends. Love ya.